Okay, let's talk about one of the most incredible creatures on the planet, the axolotl. This is an amphibian that feels like it's straight out of a fantasy novel, a being that truly connects the world of ancient myth with the absolute cutting edge of science. And its story? Well, it's all about survival.
I love this quote because it just nails it. The axolotl has this incredible dual identity. On one hand, it's this revered cultural icon with history stretching way back to the Aztecs. But on the other, it's a scientific superstar that might just hold the key to the future of human medicine. So, how can one little animal be all of those things at once? Let's dive in.
To really get the axolotl, you have to go way back. We're talking ancient Mexico, in the lakes around what would become Mexico City. Its name actually comes from the Aztec language Nahuatl, and it translates to water monster. And believe me, that name is tied to one heck of a legend. So the legend goes like this. The god Axolotl, who was the god of fire and lightning and the twin brother of the famous feathered serpent Quetzalcoatl, was supposed to be sacrificed. To escape his fate, he transformed himself into an axolotl. Because of this story, the animal became this powerful symbol of survival. But here's the twist. It was also a really important food source for the Aztecs, who farmed on their amazing floating gardens, the chinampas, right there in the axolotl's home, so it was both sacred and supper.
Okay, so from ancient myth, let's jump right into the mind-blowing biology. That whole theme of transformation from the legend? Well, it's the lack of transformation that makes the axolotl so famous. This is the amphibian that basically never grows up.
There is a scientific term for this. It's called neoteny. And what it means, in simple terms, is that the axolotl hits the pause button on its development. It grows to adult size and can even have babies, all while staying in its juvenile, gilled, water-breathing form. It completely skips the whole turn into a land animal part that other salamanders go through.
And when you put it side by side with a typical salamander, you can really see how wild this is. Most salamanders, they develop lungs, they lose their gills, and they crawl out onto land. The axolotl? Nope. It keeps those feathery external gills and just chills in the water for its entire life. It's playing a totally different game.
So why? What's the secret? It all comes down to hormones. In other amphibians, the thyroid gland pumps out this flood of hormones that basically tells the body, okay, time to grow up. It kicks off metamorphosis. But in axolotls, that system is, well, it's pretty much switched off. They never get the hormonal signal, so they just never get the memo to leave the water.
But staying young forever isn't even its most amazing trick, not by a long shot. The axolotl has what you can only call a biological superpower, and it's the main reason scientists are absolutely obsessed with them. It can regenerate, almost perfectly.
Think about this. If an axolotl loses a leg, it doesn't just grow a stump. First, the wound heals up completely without a scar. Then, this incredible cluster of stem cell-like cells called a blastema forms at the injury site. And that blastema holds all the instructions to regrow a perfect, brand new limb. We're talking bones, muscles, skin, nerves, the whole shebang.
And scientists are actually starting to figure out how it works. They found this key enzyme, CYP26B1, that acts like a GPS for regrowth. It creates this kind of chemical map telling the new cells exactly what they need to become a shoulder, an elbow, or even tiny fingertips. It is an unbelievably precise blueprint for rebuilding a body part from scratch.
Now here's where it gets really exciting. We humans, we have the same basic genetic tools inside of us. The axolotl just knows how to switch them on. So if we can figure out how they do that, how they activate this incredible healing process, it could literally revolutionize how we treat everything from major injuries to diseases.
But to unlock those secrets, scientists first had to solve one of the biggest puzzles in biology: the axolotl's absolutely gigantic and complicated genome.
32 billion. That's how many base pairs are in the axolotl's DNA. For a while, it was actually the largest animal genome ever sequenced.
And just to put that number into perspective, take a look at this. The axolotl genome is more than 10 times bigger than our own. For years, this sheer size made it almost impossible for scientists to piece together a complete genetic map. It was like trying to assemble a puzzle with billions of nearly identical pieces.
But then, a massive breakthrough. Using some really advanced techniques, researchers finally did it. They assembled that enormous mess of DNA into 14 tidy chromosomes. They even used this cool imaging technique with glowing markers to physically light up the chromosomes in a cell just to double-check that their map was right. And it was.
Having this map is a total game changer. For the first time, scientists can actually pinpoint the exact genes that control specific traits, like a famous mutation that affects heart development in axolotls. It's like having a detailed blueprint that helps us understand not just regeneration, but the fundamental rules of how all animals with backbones, including us, are built.
And this is where the story takes a really tragic turn. We have this profound, heartbreaking irony. While the axolotl is a hero in science labs all over the world, it's literally disappearing from the only place it has ever called home.
This is it, the ancient canals of Lake Xochimilco. This is all that's left of the huge lake system the Aztecs lived on, and it's now been completely swallowed up by the sprawl of Mexico City. This is the only place on Earth where you can find an axolotl in the wild.
The numbers are just staggering. Back in 1998, scientists estimated there were about 6,000 axolotls for every square kilometer here. Fast forward to 2014, and that number had crashed to just 36.
That's a drop of over 99% in just 16 years. Today, the most optimistic estimates say maybe 1,000 adults are left. But some researchers fear the real number could be as low as 50. 50 individuals left in the entire world.
So what happened? Sadly, it's a familiar story. Pollution from the massive city that surrounds the canals, the introduction of invasive fish like tilapia and carp, which just devour young axolotls, and the slow decay of that ancient Chinapa farming system, which actually helped keep the water clean for centuries. And yet, through all this, the axolotl is still a beloved national icon in Mexico. It's right there on the beautiful 50 peso banknote, which actually won an International Banknote of the Year award. And that's the heart of the paradox, isn't it? It's a celebrated treasure that's on the absolute brink of vanishing forever.
But thankfully, the story isn't over yet. There is hope. Conservationists are working like crazy to restore the canals, building these special filtered refuges to keep the axolotls safe. There are even programs like Adopt an Axolotl to get the community involved. So the final question really comes down to us. This living legend holds secrets that could change our own future. Are we going to be the ones who step up to protect it? Or are we going to be the ones who just let it fade away back into myth?